You know, who doesn't love a little juice in the morning?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me, Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. I'll tell you about Gametime in just a little bit. Thank you for making this your first listen. And, you know, my day started out pretty sucky because my daughter's team lost in an upset in soccer, and you can see I just got back from it. And, yeah, we're all upset. We're going to have to get in the transfer portal, I think. But so my day got better. Jamarian Juice Gordon from Jackson High School, an incredible athlete, cornerback, plays some safety too, but I think cornerback projection at Alabama. He has committed to the Crimson Tide, giving Alabama – is that their first commit for 2026?
I believe it is. But they had one earlier, but that kid decommitted. The center from Juju's school had committed at one point, but he has decommitted. So Juice Gordon is currently the only 26th commitment. Alabama's only offered 3 players in the state of Alabama in the 26th class, and Juice is one of those 3.
And it's a big commitment. Look, the state is absolutely loaded in 2026 again. The state of Alabama has been cranking out some talent. And this guy is in the top 250, but he's a high 4-star. It's like, how many times has Alabama, like he's probably the 12th or 11th best player in Alabama, and he's still in the top like 220. So, I mean, that's pretty good for a state our size. And I'm excited to get him. I think he's got a lot of potential. And, Jimmy, what do you think about it?
I'm really fired up about this one. And let me tell you, I don't like predicting players rising in the rankings so much because that's beyond my control. It's just my opinion. And I defer to Charles Power and the rankings department at On3, who do just the best job in the business at this. But let me tell you, I think Juice Gordon is a guy who's already a 4-star, Luke. But this guy's going up. I'm not saying he will be a 5-star. I don't believe that's true. But I do believe there is a good chance one day, by the time the 26th cycle comes to an end, he could be a national top 100 type prospect. He's a different prospect than Derek Smith, who's a 25 prospect committed to Alabama, the safety from Selma. But I don't think Juice Gordon and Derek Smith are too different in terms of where they should be ranked. And Derek Smith, I think, is national top 50. So Juice Gordon is awesome. I can talk about him for the whole show, and we might do that because I like Juice so much. Here's where I'll start. He came on my radar midway through his 9th grade season, and not every kid does that, but he's tremendously productive at Jackson High School. And I found him because I was watching Jackson's quarterback, who's trained by QB Country, who's a pretty high-profile guy. His name's Landon Duckworth. He's also in the 26th class. He's Juice's age. He is committed to South Carolina already. So I was watching Duckworth, and then I couldn't help but notice an incredibly athletic receiver. And then when I looked up the roster and saw that he was in the 9th grade, I'm like, this guy's going to be a thing. And then literally about 2 weeks after I saw that, Penn State was his first offer. Really, and I don't believe his junior season had elapsed. I mean, his freshman season had elapsed, and he already had that Penn State offer. Georgia would come along and offer. I knew it was only a matter of time before he became a priority for Alabama. As you know, Nick Saban treated in-state players a little differently, some of it good and some of it bad. But here's the thing about Nick Saban and in-state players, and this is such a good point. It's a good recruiting lesson. Coach Saban knew that kids who grew up in Alabama very likely grew up wanting to play for the Crimson Tide. So they were slow to offer some in-state players because they believe when we offered an in-state player, we have to be ready to take him that day. We cannot slow play, tell an in-state kid, well, here's an offer, but you're a maybe. In-state offers need to be takes. And so that's why they were a little late. They wanted to see what else was out there. Why take the kid here when a 5-star plus from Montana, wants to play for Alabama. So now I think DeBoer is going to be a little different than Saban. They've been a little more aggressive in getting out offers to in-state guys, a little more. But I've heard the Godfather, Courtney Morgan, I've heard him out of his own mouth that, hey, with these in-state guys, we got to be careful because we got to be kind of prepared to take those guys. So I think that they're well aware of how it works. And the very fact that Juice Gordon is an offer and take, and his junior year of high school does not even begin for another 2 or 3 months, shows how special he is. Now, I first noticed him as a wide receiver, and I knew he would be a thing. Now that I've seen DB tape of him, he's even a better player than I thought. I think he is a more of a defender than an offensive player, even though, frankly, he's an SEC prospect as a wide receiver too, in my opinion. But he's an even better prospect on the defensive side of the ball. Here's some more things to talk about with Jackson. This is so neat, for such a small town. Jackson's not a big place. It's north of Mobile, about an hour into the country, as I call it. Ironically, if you're leaving to go to Tuscaloosa from Mobile, you go up Highway 4.
Stop you.
Jackson.
You
Sure.
said about an hour into the country, as I call it. Like you came up with that.
I did.
I call a very rural area the country.
I did. And everyone stole that from me, and everyone owes me $1 because I invented that when I was a kid. I call the woods the country. And
every now and again, the narcissism just perps right out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm the first person to say that, so I should own that.
I once told a woman, I coined the phrase, "Pardon my French."
And I didn't even speak French, and I came up with that one too. But so if you leave Mobile and you're headed towards Tuscaloosa, you go an hour into the country, and you will be in Jackson, Alabama, up Highway 43. So I'll say that because it's just pretty rare that a town of that size produces this many prospects at once, because Jackson has not been an historic big-time producer of players. Now, there's been players from Jackson, no doubt. Chris Jordan was a good offensive line prospect that signed with Alabama in the Stallings era, for instance. But Jackson, now in this upcoming junior and upcoming sophomore class, it's that 2 classes, they have like 5 or 6 SEC players. And normally it would take over a decade for Jackson to produce 5 or 6 SEC players. They got them all bunched up in that group. The quarterback, Landon Duckworth, again, committed to South Carolina. He's a guy that will be on Alabama's radar in the 26 group. There's no doubt they're going to take a long look at him. 6'4", 200, great arm, great
Top
kid.
70 guy,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he's going to be higher and higher. They, of course, have Juice Gordon, who's now committed to Alabama.
And if you're South Carolina, you've got to be a little worried now that Alabama took another dude from Jackson. I mean, you do. You just have to be.
I think they knew when they took Duckworth, they're like, well, we're going to take him, but we're going to have to fight like heck to keep him, because as he gets older and bigger and fills out, we're not the only SEC school that's going to be interested in Landon Duckworth. He's going to be hard to hold on to. So now Juice Gordon, another kid at Jackson, and this is one everyone needs to watch for sure. The true dude at Jackson High School is a sophomore running back, Xavier Crowell, and we will talk about him after Luke tells us all about Game Time.
God, what a marvelous job by you. I'm impressed.
I've also invented the word segue.
Look, talking about Game Time. You want to download the Game Time app. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off that first order. I love all of our sponsors. Y'all know this. Game Time is definitely one of the ones that I don't even have to look at the library. I just don't. I can give you a testimony. And I know you've all heard this, but just bear with me. I've gotten NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, college football, college basketball tickets, all from Game Time. I've gotten concert tickets from Game Time. I don't even go to concerts, and I got my tickets from Game Time.
I went to one last night.
Who'd you go see?
Billy Currington in Tuscaloosa.
Did you use Game Time?
I did not use Game Time because I purchased the tickets a long time ago. But however, the wife and I discussed Game Time and talked about we should have bought these tickets through Game Time. That was a conversation that we had before the concert started.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, because y'all screwed up, but that's all right. That's all right. The concert was probably worse because y'all screwed up so bad. Because if you don't use Game Time, you don't get to see your seats beforehand. It's so crucial. Go check out Game Time. Download their app. You're going to love it. I promise you. It's so easy. And it just sits on your phone until you need it. And trust me, I'll be traveling, and every now and again I'll be like, I'll go see the Washington Nationals play. Bang, bang, bang. Look up Game Time. I'm in there. and the tickets are incredibly low. I get to see where I'm going to sit. It's guaranteed. It's awesome. Go to Gametime, download that. Locked On College for $20 off that first order. One other thing to add about Jackson High School is you are right that they hadn't had a ton of prospects necessarily, but they are an excellent program. They're sort of like Fife. I mean, Fife doesn't have a lot of prospects, but Fife will just beat your buttocks. But and I'll tell you something else funny. I remember Chris Jordan from that class. He was an offensive lineman that you were talking about from Jackson. And I remember him because my pledge brother was Chris Jordan, who is Leroy Jordan's son. I'm kind of sort of related to Leroy Jordan. And Chris Jordan, it just happens to have the same name as the Chris Jordan that was being recruited. And I think some people were excited at first thinking it may have been Leroy's son, and it was not Leroy's son. Chris Jordan, good dude. He lives out in Texas now with Leroy. I think works for the family business, all that stuff. So they're doing great. But anyway, he was an SAE with me at Alabama. Okay, so first of all, talk about this other running back for Jackson. And then, Jimmy, who's next on the docket? I mean, who's there this weekend? Who could be next to commit in any class?
Yeah, Xavier Crowell is the running back. Goes by EZ is his nickname. Xavier Crowell, the running back at Jackson, a teammate of Juice Gordon. He's one to watch because it's too early to know because it's just impossible to watch every 2027 running back in the country already because you're talking about 2 classes away from the class that's right in front of us. But as we speak, Xavier Crowell is a strong candidate to be considered perhaps the number 1 running back in the entire nation in 2027. I think he could be in that conversation. So you're talking about a major dude at Jackson. Now, let's see. I mean, a lot can change in that much time for the good and the bad. I've seen a lot of 9th and 10th grade running backs that I thought were going to be a big deal. And all that happened is as they got older, they added weight and lost speed. So that's why you don't emphatically say, hey, this 9th grade running back will be the best one in the country. You just watch them as they go. But so far, so good. Crowell will be very likely a high priority prospect for Alabama, and who he has an Alabama offer, by the way. And not many 2027 guys do. Crowell will battle with one of your guys, Luke, one of your local guys, Trent Seaborn, the fantastic quarterback from Thompson in Birmingham. Seaborn and Crowell right now look like the top 27 prospects in Alabama. So no doubt having Juice Gordon on the team now that Juice is committed, that can't do anything but help Alabama in its efforts to land Crowell because Jackson's such a small place. I mean, there's no question about how close Juice Gordon and Xavier Crowell are being teammates from such a smallish kind of town. But again, there's more players than just those. There'll be other players at Jackson that Alabama looks at, but the highest profile ones are Juice, who committed to Alabama today, Landon Duckworth, the quarterback, and the 2027 running back, EZ Crowell.
All right, so who's on campus this weekend? Because there are some folks on campus this weekend, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I've got some brain fog on that. Khalil Jacobs is on campus this weekend for sure.
No, that's a big one.
That is big because he's current. He's not even 2025. This is transfer portal Khalil Jacobs. So if Khalil Jacobs commits to Alabama, he will be on the team this fall. He is a potential transfer from the University of South Alabama. He is being recruited by Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Auburn, and possibly others. So this is a highly sought after SEC level prospect, even though he's played his first 2 seasons of college football in Mobile for South Alabama. He's very good. We should be excited to get him. I'll tell you who he's similar to is a kid already on Alabama's roster, our top backup inside linebacker, Justin Jefferson. I think Khalil Jacobs is similar to him. Now, he's a little bigger than Justin Jefferson, which is a good thing. He's a little bigger, but he reminds me of Justin Jefferson because he's so aggressive. He closes to ball carriers like he's a defensive back. I mean, he is quick to the ball carrier. And as Gene Stallings used to say, one of my favorite Gene Stallings quotes, he arrives to the ball carrier in a bad humor. I mean, this is a big hitter. He plays the game the old-fashioned way. He brings his hat, as they say. So Khalil Jacobs will be interesting to get. Now, does Alabama have the room? That's a question. Here's another question. Does he prefer Missouri or Auburn or Ole Miss? Alabama has two inside linebackers who are the unquestioned starters in Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell. They're the best inside linebacker duo in the country. Is Khalil Jacobs going to be willing to sign with Alabama knowing that he will not be a starter at Alabama? Not this fall. He's going to have to wait until next year to become a starter at Alabama. So is Khalil going to do that, or is he going to say, you know what, I think I'm just going to go to Missouri or Auburn and be one of their best players on defense this year? So I'm not sure how much Alabama is prioritizing him. They obviously are prioritizing him to an extent because he's here on an official visit. So Alabama is talking to him about playing here. I think more of the bigger problem is on Khalil's end. I mean, in the sense that he got in the portal. Most kids don't get in the portal because they want to go somewhere and sit on the bench. He could have stayed at South Alabama and been the star of the show. He would have been South Alabama's best player, had he stayed. He wants a bigger stage. But at Alabama, he'd have to be a second-team player this fall. So I think those are the interesting questions. But Khalil Jacobs arrives in Tuscaloosa on Saturday, and he's going to spend all day Sunday in Tuscaloosa, I believe, and leave on Monday.
You mentioned Gene Stallings, and let me tell you a funny story. So my company, Robinson Iron, has done some work in Abbeville for Jimmy Rain and Great Southern Wood. He sort of runs Abbeville and loves his hometown, and he's been good to us. So he called and asked if we would at least attend this charity event he had Thursday at the Renaissance in Montgomery, and buy a table and do all that. We didn't play in the golf tournament, so I don't play golf anymore. But anyway, so we decided to go. My father, my mom, me, and another couple whose husband works for us. So we get there, and the first 10 minutes, and it is slammed. I mean, there are a gazillion people there. We saw Gene Stallings. We saw Bruce Pearl. We saw who else did we see? Takeo Spikes. There were folks everywhere. And they were all here for this charity event. It was a big deal. It was nice. Well, my dad, he was sort of like, look, this is going to be so many people that they're older, and they're like, I don't know that I want to be here with this many people. Like, we've made our presence known. We don't even have to eat. We'll go somewhere else to eat. And so we were there a total of 15 minutes. I mean, seriously, we paid a pretty penny for a table to have dinner, but we just said, because my dad was like, look, I just want to go get something to eat. Well, as we're leaving, that's when I see Gene Stallings. And I say, hey, there's Gene Stallings. And Mom, we sort of know him through the Leroy Jordan connection, whatever. But we didn't go speak to him. He didn't look great, by the way. And I hate to say that, but I know he's 89 years old, but I hated to see him that way. Well, so then I go get the car from the valet. And I'm waiting. And 5 minutes had passed since I pointed Gene Stallings out to everybody. And they come outside, and my mom goes, Luke, you need to run back inside. Do you know Gene Stallings is in there? I'm like, I just told you that he was in there. She goes, you dang sure did. I was like, yeah, we need to get out of here before y'all forget where you live. So, I mean, it was a moment that sort of frightened me. But I was like, that's when you know your parents are getting old. So, all right, I need to
Well, I'll tell you after the commercial, but heck, I killed off a celebrity this week. I'll tell you about that after the commercial. I did.
Another segue.
Yep.
All right, time to talk a little FanDuel. I know you love it. I do. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big old win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, and player props and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's number one sportsbook. You need to go check them out. All right, so really quickly, I did say I didn't think Gene Stallings looked great. I'm also well aware he's 89. I'm just saying that from a perspective of when I was in school, Gene Stallings was the coach. And I almost tear up talking about it. Gene Stallings remind me so much of my grandfather, who I adored, it's like it's almost like watching my grandfather begin to deteriorate as well. And those things are hard. And Gene Stallings was like a grandfather. You think about 92, yeah. Gene Stallings was like an older grandfather. He was only, I think about it now, he was only like, what? Shoot, 50-something years old. And he's just now beginning to look old. Gene Stallings was in a time warp for a long time. So he was like in a vacuum. So God bless him. I love that man. I know that sometimes he's rubbed people the wrong way, but I love me some Gene Stallings and always will. Jimmy, tell us about you killing a celebrity.
I couldn't be a bigger fan. Yeah, I couldn't be a bigger fan of Coach. To me, I mean, I adore him. I mean, that's and it is rough watching people you care about like that age like he has. But yeah, so this week, I'm watching. I'm going back and watching. Everyone listening to this has already seen these shows, but my wife and I were watching Boardwalk Empire. I mean, that's old. It's over 10 years old. I think it started in 2010, and I'd never seen it, but we have Max now, so we're watching these HBO series that were super high profile, big, but we just recently got it, so we're watching all these HBO series. So we started watching Boardwalk Empire, and it was getting too critical in season 2, and Dabney Coleman plays a significant character in Boardwalk Empire, and he died in this episode that we watched 2 nights ago. He died. He died in the episode. And I said, when the show was over, the wife and I were just shocked. It was a shocking scene. The whole episode was great. And I'm like, wow, we saw Dabney Coleman die. And gosh, I wonder how long he's been dead. And she's like, I don't know. So I Googled Dabney Coleman's death. And I was surprised and pleasantly surprised and happy to find out he was still alive. And I was shocked. I'm like, man, this guy's a great actor. He's awesome in Boardwalk. He's so good. And then I wake up the next day. What's the first tweet I read? Dabney Coleman is dead.
Dead as a hammer.
Yeah. I feel like I had some sort of hand to that, and which is terrible because I think the world of that guy. To me, he's a legendary actor. And,
there's no doubt.
And yeah, so it was just kind of weird. I'm like, I saw him die. I thought he was dead. He's alive. Wake up the next morning. No, he died.
We do a special on Sports Bliss Live every now and again called Alive or Dead, where my co-host just brings up an actor or a famous person, and I have to announce whether I think they're alive or dead because I don't remember.
What's your batting average? You about 50-50?
Oh, it's 25%.
Less than 50-50.
Oh, it's way less. I
think I'd do pretty good, but I wouldn't do that great because I missed on Dabney significantly.
Well, and I'm going to tell one more quick story, and then I'm going to let you describe a wolf versus a bandit.
Sure.
But I used to be in sort of a grown man's fraternity in Ellick City called the Lunch Bunch, and one day there was a big debate whether this one guy that they all knew was alive or dead. They knew him, but they didn't remember if he died or not. Everybody was like, I think his name was like Harold something. And they were like, Harold's dead. And other people were like, no, he's alive. And one guy was adamant, like, he's dead as a hammer. And they said, all right. And he said, you know what? I'm just going to go.
That's him on the phone right there. Harold, he's still alive.
But no, somebody said, well, I'm just going to call him and see if he answers. So they looked it up in the phone book. They called him. Harold answered, and they just hung up, and they go, by God, he is alive. And like,
that's better than my story, and I killed a major celebrity.
So anyway, all right. Tell us about wolf versus bandit, because we had a listener ask, hey,
great question. Yeah, great question. Wolf and bandit, these are the edge positions in the new Alabama defense. It is not dramatically different than Saban, but a lot of the terminology is different. Bandit is one edge position. It is actually a defensive line position. It is coached by Freddie Roach. Whenever you're confused as to who does what, always ask or always determine, okay, who is their coach? The bandit spot is coached by Freddie Roach. So it is a defensive lineman. Right now, the starting bandit projected is Jamarian Latham, backed up by LT Overton. So what you're looking for there is a player roughly in the 6'4", 6'5", 270-pound range, because the bandit's first job is to set the edge in the run game. He lines up on the strong side, so most run plays come his way, and he's got outside contain over there. He's got to push everything inside and set the edge. But because he lines up on the edge, Luke, he also has to have some pass rush ability. You want someone who can also rush the passer. So you're looking for a pretty unique dude and a pretty talented dude. I think LT Overton's going to flourish in that role eventually. Right now, he's sort of a 1B to Jamarian Latham at Alabama. That's the bandit, about 6'5", 270. The Wolf in the new defense is the other edge. This is more of your true outside linebacker. Guys that have recently played at Alabama, like Will Anderson, like Dallas Turner, those would be Wolves most likely, although they're actually a little bit bigger than a typical Wolf. I think that
Wolves?
They would be Wolves. I guess more than one would be Wolves, but you only line up with one. So I guess the position is Wolf, but I guess the room is the Wolves room, right?
It's got to be Wolves.
It's got to be Wolves.
It's not the Timber Wolves.
The Timber Wolf. The Timber Wolf is currently, I think, what was it? They're going to Game 7. Are they going to Game 7 with the Nuggets?
Yeah.
But anyway, right now the Wolf is Quandarius Robinson, and Keanu Coote. They are sharing the Wolf spot. The Wolf spot is a pure outside linebacker. You're probably talking someone in the 230-pound range there, 235. They're going to be your speed rusher, your pass rusher who can really fly. That's your Wolf. Because it's a linebacker position, though, Luke, there is some pass coverage responsibility. You're still going to see that Wolf fall and drop into coverage. Linebackers drop into coverage. Defensive linemen push up the field. Well, the Bandit is a defensive lineman. The Wolf is a linebacker. So he's going to have to be more of a versatile athlete. That's why you're looking for like a 230-pound guy who can actually drop, play some pass coverage. But most of the time, the Wolf is going to be heading downhill, chasing the quarterback. But that's your basic description of your two edge guys in the new defense. The thicker, run-stopping Bandit, the lighter, more athletic, fly to the quarterback Wolf.
Well, that's going to do it for today's podcast because, in the immortal words of Duran Duran, I'm hungry like the Wolf, and I need to go get me some lunch. And
you're hungry like Quandarius Robinson.
We will be back maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Who knows? You never know with us. And we'll at least be back Monday. But until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.